this is Rob. It's time for another brand new edition of Member Talks, and this is going to be a fun one. We've got a gentleman from this greater Seattle area. His name is Michael Warfield, and he and I kind of just met on a chance meeting one day. I happened to stop in at a funeral home, and he was there. We got to say hi to each other, and I never knew where that was going to go. But then about 2-3 days later, I got a message from a friend of mine saying, "Aren't you Rob the Undertaker from some weird podcast thing, bizarre podcast?" Didn't really know what I was thinking. Where in the world? Well, the truth is, yes, I was on a podcast episode one time called Tales from the Space Pod, which is now known as How Bizarre, and it's a great show. You should check it out. But Michael listens to it, and he actually heard me originally, I guess, on that. And then we ended up meeting at this funeral home. So I thought, why not have him come on Member Talks? So here he is, Michael Warfield. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Oh, doing wonderful. Doing wonderful. Now,
I was just going to say thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
oh, absolutely. The honor's all ours. We love having people come on. We love talking funeral. That's kind of the point of the show. And we wanted to get some ideas from you and kind of just see where you're at. Now, tell us a little bit about, you work for a care center on the west side of the state of Washington. What is your official position with them?
So my position is, that's my dogs.
Got a dog in the background. That's all right. They like dogs.
Those are my bearded ladies. But I am a courier for my care center. I go on a south run and deliver cremated remains, printed materials, fingerprints, anything that the funeral homes need for services.
So for being a care center, excuse me, some of our listeners will understand that terminology and what that is. Some may not. Kind of explain a little bit about what a care center does in your definition, and then that'll kind of lead into, it'll kind of show us how what you're doing as a courier, it becomes very effective. So what exactly is a care center?
Yeah, so the care center is a place that we hold our families, loved ones, and also we have a prep room that prepares the decedents for all of our funeral homes that we serve.
Sure. So they all come to you then, is that right? Or not to you, but to the care center. All the decedents come there first, and from that point, whatever needs to happen with the decedents gets done there.
Yes, with the exception of one of our other funeral homes, it's been in business in Seattle for, I'll say, like several decades.
Wow.
Probably one of the most revered funeral homes in our area. And that funeral home had been acquired by the care center roughly 2 years ago. And when that happened, myself and my team of removal technicians have merged over there and started working out of the care center.
Gotcha. And so when you talked about delivery of cremated remains, fingerprints, things like that, I would assume that cremation takes place there or close by there. Obviously doing the fingerprints, that's actually something that's done, not necessarily an identification process like you would think fingerprinting is, but that's actually so you can get the engravable jewelry and things. Is that right?
Yeah. Personal mementos.
Yeah.
I actually, a friend of mine not too long ago opened up to me and showed me a fingerprint pendant of her father. And looking at that like up close was pretty cool.
Those are, they've been around for a while. but they are absolutely cool, especially when you know who the fingerprint belongs to. It's your loved one, and you can actually take and rub your fingers across that and feel the grooves of that fingerprint on that metal pendant. It's a pretty warming it's a pretty warming feeling to have that, and to be able to carry that with you.
Yeah.
And you're part of that process. That's what you do, is get those fingerprints back to be able to have those pendants made.
Yeah.
So you said, if I heard right, you're on the south run, or how did you put that? You're on the south something?
Oh, yeah. So there are two couriers. One
Okay.
one visits all of the funeral homes north of our care center, and
Okay.
myself, I visit all of the funeral homes south of the care center. So I'll I'll drive as far as Tacoma and then work my way back.
Wow. So you got quite a lot of windshield time there in the car,
Yeah,
in
in
the
fact,
traffic, in the Seattle traffic.
yeah. Uh, to prepare for this recording, I actually stopped to listen to some of your episodes here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Which one did you listen to? All right, better yet, which one did you like out of the ones you listened to?
Okay. So the first one I listened to was when you were interviewing Jessica Wakefield.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because I work with her from time to time when she's present.
Sure. Right on. Yeah, no, she's our current president, and she and I have done gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 podcasts in the past. She's a lot of fun to have on, and when she and I come on, as you probably heard, it's just mostly joking with each other and kind of laughing about stuff, but not one of the serious ones that we typically do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So you said you were if I remember right, maybe you said this off the recording, but you just were promoted to courier. You were a removal technician
Yes.
originally.
Mhm.
And tell me what a removal technician does.
So a removal technician goes out to the first calls and pick up the decedent from wherever they are, if they pass at hospital or an adult family home, a nursing facility, or at a residence, and where they could be with their loved ones.
Okay.
So pretty much wherever they reside.
And that pretty well opens the door to even more than statewide, I would assume. I mean, people die all over the place, and it's your job to drive there. I'd assume, do you go by yourself, or do you have a partner that goes with you?
So if it's a residential call, we
Uh-huh.
always text with us,
Wow.
especially if there's family present.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different from if you're going to a assisted living facility and there happens to be family there. I've went on like 1 or 2 calls where that was the scenario. It's um, handicap friendly at adult family homes legally by state of law that they have to be handicap accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So in case we can do it by ourselves, or unless the decedent is on the ground, then we would definitely need 2 people.
Yeah. So, what would you say an average mileage per shift for you? What are you thinking? How many miles you typically drive a day?
Well, that's a really good question. I've never stopped to think about that, but man, Tacoma, it goes. I'm just gonna go off on a whim and maybe say between 3 and 500 miles, maybe. I don't. I could be overshooting it.
Yeah. Well, either way, I mean, with that traffic that's so prevalent, you got to know all the side streets, all the back roads, all the alleyways to cut through stuff, and you get there to get there so you can get it done. No, that's actually pretty cool. And you know, funeral service is a unique thing in and of itself, because depending on where you're at, depending on the community where your funeral home's at, you might not have specialized staff members, specialized team members that are only doing removals or are couriers, or I would assume you at the care center, you probably have people that are full-time embalmers, or possibly even full-time cremationists. Some of the smaller funeral homes around the state and around the country, they don't have that specialty type of a position where you can do that. They have funeral directors that are kind of doing everything, and that's just how it works out. You know, it's supply and demand, I guess you could say, when it comes to employees. But that's how it works out, and it's nice to be able to. And I know, because I've been in that position in your market. I will say I've been in that position where I've worked for a care center where I was that specialized individual, and it really does work well in that type of environment with that many funeral homes, that many people. It's just, you can't staff them. So having specialty care center folks, specialty funeral that are simply funeral directors, simply embalmers, it works well. And the group that you're with has really perfected that well, and have been doing it in your area for a good long time. And so you know, you're at a good spot. What shifting gears on you a little bit, Michael, what are your goals? Do you want to go further into funeral service in the future, or are you liking what you're doing now and want to stay there, or what's your goal with that?
I do really like what I'm doing now. It pained me a lot from moving from removals to courier, because I took a lot of pride in what I did, picking up the families, loved ones, and decedents in general. I really loved interacting with the families, and just going over step by step what we're going to do if they choose to be in the room. And yeah, mainly serving the families. But yeah, I like what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep doing it until, like, if they offer me a different position where I take on more responsibility. That's basically my goal right now, is to just work my way up profession wise in the funeral home profession. And I've contemplated on going to school. I've been told once by a funeral director at one of my funeral homes that I stop at that I have a good demeanor for it. And but also, when it comes to embalming, I if I go one of the two, it would probably be embalming, because sometimes under pressure, like, I could stumble on my words and have kind of a hard time. And if I get into that state when I'm addressing a family, because also I understand they can get pretty upset, but they had just experienced the worst day of their life, and they're still going through their grief. So yeah, actually I would go the route of embalming, but I hate to go into schooling to realize I can't handle it mentally, because the severe trauma you're exposed to, especially when you're doing removals. I mean, that hadn't been a big deal for me, but when it comes to, like, the autopsies, or like preparing the body for ID views, or funerals or whatnot. I'm not sure if I can handle mentally for the preparation of the decedents.
Yeah.
The one thing that bothers me the most with decedents when it comes to it is the eyeballs or the eyes.
Yeah.
For some reason, eyes kind of weird me out, but everything else has been all right. And anytime there's a special case, like it's a little one or a really severe case where the trauma is excessive, I always stop and I want to take a look at them, not to glorify the trauma, but to exercise my mentality. Mm-hmm. So, and to work my way to if I go that route. But ultimately, to answer your question, it would be just work my way up the ladder.
Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. There's a few folks that knew that you and I were going to come on tonight and talk and know that this episode is coming up for release. They're excited to hear about it because they've told me that how impressed they are with you and how impressed they are with what you're doing for the care center, how you're reacting with the families. And they have some backing there that, they have some support. They want to see you continue to move forward. And so I say that to say congratulations, because whatever you're doing, it sounds like you're doing the right thing. And that's what we need, is people in all manner of funeral service to do the right thing and to build that relationship with the family that has just suffered a loss. What you're doing is you are, as a removal, even as courier, you are the first step in that relationship building for that family to connect with their funeral home, to connect with their funeral director, and ultimately to connect with that experience that they are about to have and will remember for the rest of their lives. And so there's some people there on your team that have said a lot of good things about you and about the way that you handle yourself. And so I just say congratulations to you for that. I think keep doing what you're doing. And if it's something that you want to pursue, keep going forward and working with it. Go to school and get that degree, get that license, and start the embalming if that's what your wishes are. I think you'll be do really well with it. So I wanted to share that with you. Question that I get asked quite frequently, and I'm sure you do too, but it is, how in the world did you ever get this idea that I want to go work in death care? I want to be part of funeral service. What was it for you what was that catalyst for you that drove you to say, I'm going to go fill out an application and see what happens?
That's a great question. So before this, I used to work in the healthcare industry as a certified nursing assistant. And one day at one of my first nursing homes that I worked at, I whenever a patient passes away, news goes around pretty fast. Yeah. And so I heard about that. And one day I saw a removal person with their cot, and I noticed they were all very fancily dressed. And I just thought, wow, that is pretty cool. And then ultimately I just thought, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like, as I view him, he's someone coming from a completely different realm to come collect the family's loved one, or regardless of if they have family or not. picking them up to ultimately take them home to their funeral home. And one day I decided I don't want to do this anymore. I'm getting way too burnt out. When my folks get to the point where they can't take care of themselves, I want to be that person to take care of them. I want to save my energy for them. So actually, I revisited the podcast you were on with the How Bizarre guys, and you said go to your local funeral home and just ask questions.
Yeah.
That's what I did. At the time, I didn't fill out an application just because I don't know. If I could have did it again, I would have did it in a heartbeat. But basically, just and yeah, I thought that was so cool, and I told myself I want to do this, and
Sure.
I even opened up to a patient saying that I'm interested in going into this line of work. She said, "Oh, that's really cool. I actually have arrangements with that funeral home that I mentioned in Seattle," and she was like, "Yeah, Warfield, the Undertaker." And actually, one day, this individual passed away. And when I was still working nights, the call came in. And anytime a nursing call comes in, my first question is, what's the name of the facility?
Right.
And it happened to be one of the places that I used to work at. And I asked, who was it? And sure enough, that person that I told you about, that was the person who passed away.
Oh,
I told I need to go on this call. So I went on the call with two other removal techs, and because they were well over like 300 pounds. Mm-hmm. I would have figured that she would have thought that would have been the coolest thing, that I personally come to pick her up. And in that prep room, I talked to her remains for a moment, and I said, "Well, as you can see, I made it." And, yeah. So there's that.
That's a great story. It really is. And you know, it happens a lot in smaller towns. It doesn't happen as much in larger cities, but when you know somebody that you have the privilege and truly the privilege of helping, even if it's a small part of just making the removal from the place of death and transporting to the funeral home, or if it's through the preparation or the for the disposition, or if it's being a part of the funeral, any part that you have, when you have that personal connection, I can't tell. I mean, that's my payment for being in funeral service, is having that privilege to be able to serve that individual that you know. And so, you know, I think that's just a really cool story and a great experience that you've been able to have. And you're going to have more of that. The more you do this, you'll have more of that, and that'll happen. And you know, like I say, I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see you kind of at the starting point of what could be a very long and exciting career for you. If you decide that that's the path that you want to go, we would certainly, as an association, welcome you into our membership, and even help with mentoring if that's something that would be something that you would be interested in. We would love to just kind of walk beside you through this life of learning funeral service. So, Michael, it's been fun to get you on here and talk. I didn't know when I first met you there at the funeral home I didn't know it would come to this sort of, you and I sitting down and chatting, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad that we were able to meet that day. That was just something that, serendipitous, I guess you could say. I just happened to stop to see somebody else there and got to meet you. I've enjoyed getting to know you. I think you're a great guy, and I like I say, I've heard a lot of great things about you from your market over there, and so keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to be a great asset to the profession.
Thank you. That means a lot.
What if somebody did want to reach out to you? Where would be the best way to do that? Would it be email? Would it be social media? How would they reach out to you if they wanted to chat with you and say, "Hey, I saw you on Member Talks," or listen to you in the car, or
sure.
Something?
I'm more than happy to accept friend requests from anybody else in the profession. I am Michael Warfield on Facebook, and when it comes to email, my personal email is m.warfield@live.com.
All right, cool. Good deal. Well, you and I kind of touched on it a little bit, and we'll go ahead and say it again. Give them a little plug if you're interested in another fun and exciting show, and kind of strange and weird and bizarre. Check it out. It's called How Bizarre. It's another podcast. I was fortunate enough to know two of the people on that show. I went to school with two of the four people that host that show. So check them out. They do a great job as well. But until next time, we want to thank you for being part of Member Talks. Thank you for coming on and joining the conversation. Bye, everybody.